Hey everyone and welcome to Storytime. My name is Jake and today we are going to be looking at the subreddit r/maliciouscompliance, where people conform to the letter but not the spirit of a request. If you're new around here, please do hit subscribe down below so that you never miss out on another video. But for now, let's sit back, relax and enjoy some malicious compliance. Try and sue us after messing up? Get fired instead. When my second year of university rolled around, I was living with 3 other friends in a property we rented through a letting agency, which had a ridiculous pun for a name, but go off. And the house initially was perfectly fine. We moved in at the beginning of August and had no problems for a while. When they asked early on whether we wanted to sign a contract for the next year, we said sure, and signed a new contract in November, due to start the next academic year. We know this was a mess up in hindsight, but we really didn't think we'd have serious issues. However, when it started getting colder in winter months after a mild autumn, we realised that our boiler was absolutely god awful. It would fail about once a week, barely heat the radiators and wouldn't heat rooms, and would need repressuring each time it died. Being students and not too wise about renting, we just put up with this at first, dutifully emailing the agents every time it broke and waited for them to send someone out. In the meantime, the busted boiler meant that the hot water was dodgy, sometimes cutting out, and that the house was freezing. And, as such, the monthly utility bills were through the roof. One was almost 1.5 times that month's rent. Since the boiler was essentially now a very expensive kettle, and we needed office heaters on almost constantly so we didn't get frostbite. We could constantly see our breath and practically needed to be fully dressed to sleep. This caused issues. Constant colds for one guy, mold growing in the bathroom since we didn't ventilate well as to not lose the little heat the house retained, and being unable to dry our clothes. We didn't have a tumble dryer, just a clothes horse. We were fed up and decided we wanted out of the new contract. Because we went through an agency, we had no direct contact with the landlord. Every query and contact was through the agents. This is important to remember for later. The agents, while very polite over the phone and in person, were flaky and bad at fixing problems, and it took months for them to send a gas man over. And even then, it was just to renew the safety certs, and he didn't even do his job right. So a couple weeks later, another guy was called out when it broke again. The landlord even comes for this visit to make sure there are no more mess-ups. And this is our first time meeting her. She was a bit of a soccer mum type, but she seemed to be sorting it, and the issue was kinda fixed. As well as an ancient boiler that really needed replacing could be fixed. This was the last time we talked to them directly. Through this whole process, my parents had been helping us document things. My mum, being a solicitor, and my dad a landlord himself, so they knew their stuff. They were grumbling about the agents from the start, but for us it was easier to just put up with most of the BS since uni work was stressful enough without all this. Taking the offhand advice given to us by the agents at the beginning of the tenancy, we kept records and pictures of every document, email and letters we received, and took pictures of problems of work being carried out for record keeping. We eventually figured they'd try and screw us in some form sooner or later, so evidence was needed. We emailed them over the break, officially saying we wanted our next year's tenancy. They were amiable and said that if we could get someone else to take it, sure, but were very adamant that if we didn't, we had to keep paying rent for that contract. We have house viewings and we advertise for months, but we get nowhere. At this point, tensions are rising and my mum has taken our challenge as a personal hobby to sort out legally. Since we had initially tried to be low maintenance tenants and deal with small issues, our contract stated that any issues related to the property needed to be sorted out by the landlords or the agents in case we caused further damage trying to do repairs. We instead decided to do exactly what our contract said. We emailed them constantly about every tiny issue we had, from a broken light bulb to a frosty letter flap. We knew our contracts front to back, the local laws around renting, and asked the uni about student renting for specific detail. Getting permission to change a light bulb became a bit of an inside joke to us at this point. How many working days is it going to take to change this time? 3 to 5? It's Friday night. We then made sure we complied with every single thing they asked us to do in order to leave this new contract, like advertise, accommodate all viewings, keep them updated about anyone who was interested, etc. We went above and beyond trying to get some poor suckers to take the house off our hands. We emailed constantly through this for a paper trail. We made sure we could document this entire thing. It was stressful, but my parents assured us that things would work out, and knowing we were annoying them as much as they annoyed us helped. When we move out at the end of the first tenancy and hand our keys in with explicit letters saying that we were not returning for the next contract, we waited for stuff to hit the fan. A few weeks later, while I'm on holiday, we all get emails, forwarded from the landlord via the agents, saying that unless we immediately found new tenants or agreed to stay on, they'd sue us. Scare tactics pretty much. This was also the first time we'd had an email directly forwarded from the landlord, since usually the agents just passed on any info, etc. in their words. The landlord said they'd had no notification saying we wanted out of the new tenancy, that this was out of the blue, and therefore they weren't able to advertise for new tenants. So, we dutifully sent them a large email with screenshots and pictures of email notifications, of house viewings, emails about potential takers, the original emails about us not wanting to take the contract with the date 6 months beforehand clearly highlighted, and waited. After a quiet period, we got an almost sullen sounding email saying that they would drop it off if we paid 4 months rent from the new contract, since although there was an error in communication, we still did not fulfill our end and provide replacement tenants. So, out rolls another long email with photos of everything the agent had messed up, including the dodgy gasman visit. Came to learn what he did was illegal and potentially dangerous, and it was the agent's job to make sure he did his job right. The fact that the new contract signing was botched in the first place due to the agent's error, and one of our housemates had bought a laser thermometer to document how cold the rooms were, sometimes as low as 8 Celsius or 45 Fahrenheit, and had taken pictures of readings, so there was a heavy implication that the house was not suitable for habitation during that time. We haven't received a single email since that, and when the bus goes past the house recently, I see that the letting sign has been changed to a different company, and the house is no longer available through the original agency. So, they got fired by the landlords for messing up so much. I feel smug every time I go past. You really can get some really bad letting agencies in the UK. My neighbours wanted to call a professional to mark their property line. My parents agreed. This was a long time ago, but I remember it clearly. We moved into a community with a tight space in between our house and our neighbours, and we didn't like them being able to see into our kitchen. We put up a bunch of plants, costing thousands, but my parents thought it would be worth it. A week later, my parents awoke to the plants completely chopped down. My father was furious and marched down to our neighbour's house. He told my father the plants were on his property line, therefore he had total right to take them down. He warned that if anything were to go on his property again, he would report us to the authorities immediately. Later that day, my father called the company that put in the plants, and with the warranty, we could have them replanted next week for no charge. We made sure there was no way it was on our neighbour's property. However, a few days later, we caught him chopping them down at 2 AM. We called the police upon obstruction of property, and after a chat with my neighbour, he decided to call a professional and mark the property line. My father agreed. A few days later, I got home to find orange tape in my neighbour's yard. Apparently, his fence was 11 feet over our property line. We watched as he took down his fence, completely furious. Within the next month, we were enjoying our new space and privacy in our backyard, and my neighbour ended up losing a quarter of his backyard. My neighbour ended up having to pay almost $10,000 for the destruction of our property, and we got to plant our plants again. I'm just saying, their houses must be huge, because 11 feet just to take away because a surveyor comes along, like that's a big area. Hey everyone, I hope you're all having a really good day and that you enjoyed that video. If you want to check out some other videos, then click on screen right now or check out the playlist down below. If you enjoyed that video, then please hit like down below and subscribe if you aren't already. But thank you so much for watching, and I will see you very soon.